समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
These 3 days this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we've seen a lot of attention, a lot of traffic going into one direction, one side of Lutyens Delhi, or what used to be Lutyens Delhi. This is around the building called Vigyan Bhavan. What is the reason? That's where the RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevaks Sangh, was having what I might call its second coming out party. Second coming out party in the sense that 2018 also for 3 days, the head of the RSS, the chief, Sarsang Chalak, Dr. Mohan Bhagwat, he had come in to speak, and they had invited a very diverse audience, including people like us, media of course, but also diplomats from many countries. In this case, this time 55 countries. They were also scientists, retired services personnel, particularly former chiefs. I saw at least 2 chiefs sitting there today in the front row. Former Air Chief and former Army Chief Manoj Naravane, who's also our columnist, and Air Chief Marshal Bhadoria, they were sitting there, and many other opinion leaders, and including YouTubers, influencers, etc. So this was a big outreach. 2018 was the first. Now 7 years later is the second. Remember, 2018 was during the second Modi government. This is under the third Modi government. I have attended 2 of them, and so has DK Singh, our political editor, to whom I also owe a lot of knowledge that I might be dispensing to you right now, but soon enough he will join me, and to understand better what Dr. Mohan Bhagwat has said over these days. So I will tell you how this started. It started on Tuesday with a small tea that the Sarsang Chalak had for a bunch of editors and media owners. I was present there too. He spoke with us for about an hour and a half, quite freely. And then he delivered his first long lecture, which was about 2 hours. Then the next day again for about 2 hours. And today he took questions. So while he delivered these lectures, there were little forms left on every guest's desk. It's a big hall in Vigyan Bhavan, and you could write your question. So there were hundreds of questions, including one from DK Singh. At the end of the day, somebody compiled those questions and divided them into some broad categories. Now, the anchor or sutradhar of the event this evening read out the names of the questioners in each category and posed those questions in each category to Sarsang Chalak, who then answered them. That went on for more than 3 hours. Could have gone on longer because there were many questions. However, what was striking was not just the candor with which he spoke, but also how measured he was, how measured and how careful also to distance the RSS from any controversy, also to keep the RSS distant from the government. That was very consciously done. Now, before I bring DK in, which will be in a couple of minutes, let me tell you a couple of things also about the RSS. The RSS did not start out to be as it is now. RSS was founded in 1925. This is the 100th year of the RSS. That's why all this activity is even more significant. That's why this year on Independence Day, the Prime Minister also made a mention of the RSS. He called it the largest NGO in the world. He praised it for its voluntary spirit and its contribution, etc., for the first time. This is the 100th year. It was on 27th September 1925, Vijayadashmi or Dashera, that the RSS was founded. It was founded by just a small group of people, all Maharashtrian Brahmins, a small group of people led by very young Keshav Baliram Hedgewar, Dr. Keshav Baliram Hedgewar. Dr. Keshav Baliram Hedgewar, like most political leaders of that vintage, had started out in the Congress party. He got disillusioned with the Congress party, one because after the First World War or thereabouts, there were a bunch of communal riots in the country, where there was a sense that Hindus had Hindus had suffered more. In any case, in any riot, every side thinks that they suffered more. And Dr. Hedgewar and others thought that Hindus needed physical training, they needed to be stronger, and that's how this idea came in. Remember, this was also the period of Khilafat movement. After First World War, that is when the Ottoman Empire collapsed and a new regime was coming into place in Turkey. And that got a lot of the Muslim communities angry, particularly in the subcontinent. So the subcontinent had the big Khilafat movement. It's actually Caliphate movement, but in the subcontinent it was called. So Khilafat is not opposition. Khilafat is the Caliphate because they wanted the restoration of the Ottoman Caliphate. Gandhi decided, Mahatma Gandhi, who had just come into India in 1916, he wasn't that old and that experienced it. 1916 he came into India, was born in 1869 as we know. He had worked in South Africa, in Britain. Now he came to India. He'd been in India just for a few years when he thought it might be a good idea for the Congress to join India's Muslims in the Khilafat movement. He thought that would be a way of keeping Hindus and Muslims together, also to bring them together. Now, those are situations that were very complex, and that's when India saw many changes. In fact, if I take you back, it's a little bit of a digression. It was also in those years that SGPC, that Shiromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, came in 1925. The British passed that law, also underlining to the Sikhs that they were not Hindus, they were a community different from the Hindus. In fact, until then, in censuses, Sikhs in Punjab had been reporting themselves as Hindus. So this was in that period that the RSS was formed. Then the RSS expanded from there. Initial idea was that they will get these Hindus together, mostly Maharashtrian Brahmins, and teach them in Kshatriya culture. So there were gymnasiums set up, so they will go and become physically stronger. And then in subsequent riots, 1927, etc., they were seen and they acquired some support in the community. 1926 it is, although the RSS was founded on 27th of September 1925, it did not get its name. It got its name in April 1926, again in Nagpur at Hedgewar's house. In fact, where the RSS was finally pronounced as having been formed and having been named, that is part of the very large RSS headquarters or premises in Nagpur now. And from then, the group grew exponentially in opposition to the Congress party. It was an Indian nationalist group, as was the Congress, but the RSS was then purely a Hindu group. During the Second World War, it took a very different position from the other parties. It did not fight the British in the Second World War, although Hedgewar, as a congressman, had gone to jail twice. He had gone to jail twice as a freedom fighter, but as a congressman. Second World War, he also pretty much stayed out of helping the British. After he passed away in 1940 at a young age of 51, MS Golwalkar became the chief, and he carried on for a long time. In fact, in 1966, Golwalkar wrote his seminal work, Bunch of Thoughts. Bunch of Thoughts it's called. In Hindi, it's Vichar Navneet. And in that one, he made really negative comments about the minorities, particularly the Muslims. He also said that India has a innate threat from Muslims, Christians, and communists. That is something that Mohan Bhagwat has now made a departure from. In 2018, when he came to Delhi in his first coming out party, he said that views expressed at any given point of time might have had context then. Those are not binding now. So he distanced himself and the RSS from this line of, at least this thought in that bunch of thoughts. Now he's traveled some more distance from there, and that is what we are going to talk about. And because the Sarsang Chalak said a lot, which is quite profound and quite newsy, to tell us the story more concisely, I have DK Singh. DK, you are much more disciplined than me. So tell me the big highlights from what he said. Your 3 headlines.
Well, first of all, he has put this entire speculation, which has been raging all across the country for months now, about maybe he himself is stepping down as Sarsang Chalak or this 75-year age ceiling.
Because
So,
both Sarsang Chalak and the Prime Minister are turning 75 in September.
Yeah, so on
Just about a week apart
so
from each
11th
other.
of September, the Sarsang Chalak is turning 75, and 17th of September, the Prime Minister is turning 75. So there have been frenzied kind of speculation about all this.
You also asked a question on that.
Yes.
One, huh?
So he has put it to rest. Basically, when he says that there is no such thing, I have not said about myself or about anybody else. So he did not name Narendra Modi or did not talk about the Prime Minister, but when he says anybody else, so basically he is saying there is no such age ceiling.
अकलमंद को इशारा काफी है.
And the fact that he is saying if Shakha wants me to continue, I'll continue. If the Shakha wants me to go, I'll go. So, sorry, the Sangh. So basically it's for the organization to decide how useful I am.
Yeah, and he said, if the organization wants me to be there at 80 or do whatever at 80, I will. And if they tell me to leave what I'm doing now and just run a Shakha, I will do that also. So that speculation is now over. In fact, he also said that he was quoting Moropant Pingle, who's one of the old leaders of the RSS, that he was a very witty man, and he said this as a witticism. Not as a serious thing. But once again, I think even there, Akalmand ko ishara kafi hai.
And relating to that, he also spoke about this intense speculation that the next BJP president is not being appointed because the RSS
has problems.
Yeah, had problems. And he was very emphatic. He was basically saying that no, we do not control anybody. We do not control any organization. Somebody asks for advice, we give, but we do not control. We have nothing to do with that. And then he just said, without saying he's talking about the BJP president, he said, you can take your time. So let the BJP decide who they want and let them come up with names. So basically, completely taking the RSS away from that decision-making process, at least saying so.
DK, 2-3 things. I will just mention the highlights and then you can elaborate. First, I think there was a very conscious and very strong effort to distance the RSS from the old view of being anti-Muslim, anti-Christian, anti-minority, and to say that we treat everybody as Indian. And this was said in many different ways, including on that question on renaming
of roads
named after invaders, right? So we'll go into that. Also he answered indirectly another stereotype about Muslims, that they have too many children and Hindus are having fewer children, because he said that all communities have seen declining birth rates. Hindus saw the decline first, but Muslims are also, minorities are also seeing a decline in birth rates now, and he said it's not good for anybody. In fact, he recommended three children for every family. So hum do hamare do khatam, ab hum do hamare teen. Of course, he has a sense of humor. So he said, you don't ask a pracharak how many children you should have, because pracharaks, as you know, are celibate and they don't have families. So he said that, and then he gave his own demographic reasons for how India needs more babies. He also said that if you have 3 children, there'll be fewer ego problems. I don't know about that, but he's a pracharak, so he hasn't quite raised a family. But I know families which have 3 children. Having 3 or 4 is no guarantee, no protection from ego hassles between children. That said, the other thing that he said, that was nationalism and faith. To me, a highlight. He said, nationalism is not connected with faith and ethnicity. And it took us back to Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Now, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, I can understand APJ Kalam, Dr. APJ Kalam, or Company Quartermaster Havaldar Abdul Hamid, or Ashfaqullah Khan. Those Muslim heroes the RSS ecosystem codes.
And he named all of them.
He named all of them, and he said, it will be great if landmarks are named after them. But for him to bring in Maulana Azad, who otherwise I see criticized by many people in this ecosystem, many well-known names in this ecosystem, also as the first example of Nehru's appeasement policy, right? He was the first education minister of India. For him to quote Maulana Azad so copiously, and he quotes from a Maulana Azad interview in a publication in Lahore called Chattan in 1946, where Maulana Azad, he says made the same thing, that मजहब और कौम अलग अलग चीजें हैं, और मजहब बदलने से कौम नहीं बदल जाती. That your faith does not decide your nationality. And he says that in Europe, 3 or 4 countries, the people have the same parentage. They come from the same genetic stock, but they are different countries. So nationalism and faith have no connection. That was the other highlight. And then he also nuanced the RSS view on what is these days called, what the Prime Minister called in his Independence Day speech, Ghuspaitiye. And he said, when somebody asked him a question on infiltrators, and he said, yes, they should be turned out, and there was a big applause. He said, I know there's applause, but that applause, I hope that applause is not because you think I'm asking for Muslims to be turned out. Any infiltrator should be turned out. And if jobs are to be given, give jobs to your own Muslims, not to any outsiders. No country wants foreigners to come and take their jobs. So there was a strong degree of nuancing there as well. And in the same vein, he was asked that you participated in the Ayodhya movement. What's your view on Kashi, Mathura, and other Muslim places of worship, where Hindu groups might be agitating to get them dug up, etc.? And he said that RSS usually does not participate in any movement. The only movement in which the RSS has participated openly and consciously was the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. That's been achieved. He said that RSS will not participate in any movement about Kashi or Mathura, but if its workers, its volunteers want to participate, there is no bar on them. But as an organization, RSS will not participate. But then he went on to say, DK, and that's very interesting. He said, look, 2 of these places were the Janmsthans, where Lord Ram and Lord Krishna were born. And third is the home of Lord Shiva. So somebody can also see, I think he's referring to the other side, that the other side can also see that these are 3 key places so important to the Hindus. So they can be a trade-off. He doesn't use the word trade-off, so I should not put any words in his mouth. But is that the interpretation?
Yeah, because right after that he added that I repeat that you should not go for looking for shivlings in every mosque.
Yes.
So it's like saying that, okay, these 3, and then that's all.
And then he says, if courts give you a temple, don't go after anything, but if the courts give you something, then set up your own mechanism to look after your temples. And he says it's also important that you look after the temples that you have better, right? That's also an interesting takeaway.
That was in the context of governments running temples.
Yeah, because he said some are being run well, some are not, but he said it applies to both. Some private temples are being run well, some are not. So it does not position himself firmly on the side of the priests, particularly in the south, who want these temples back from government control, like Tirupati, for example, given to the old priestly families. He's not positioned himself on that side.
So Subramaniam Swamy has gone to the court over
Yes.
Again, he's not taking that line.
Yeah. So just elaborate on this outreach. 1, to the Muslims and Christians. Second, his outreach to his own base to explain this. Because his own base has been brought up thinking something else.
So if you look at the theme of this lecture series, they are calling it 100 Years of RSS, New Horizons. It's like RSS basically saying what they are looking forward from here, where they go from here. And he also spoke about what the RSS plans to do in future. That was yesterday and the day before. But I am looking at it as RSS 2.0 at 100. Because so far RSS has been more inward looking, in the sense addressing their own swayamsevaks. Beyond that, addressing Hindus' concerns more. Now we witness them like looking outward. So you saw his speech was being translated in English, French, and Spanish. Then we have been discussing this. His definition of Hindu, it's very inclusive, all encompassing. Like, it's not a religion. So RSS has always maintained like it's working for the reconstruction of the Rashtra or Hindu Rashtra. But they have been at pains to explain that when they say Hindu, it's not Hindu as a religious community.
Yes.
And then he has given a wide definition of Hindu, which you have.
So I can read some of that in Hindi and we can translate it simultaneously. He says, Hindu ka arth hai samavesh. That means to be Hindu means to be inclusive. Hindu का अर्थ है समावेश और समावेश की कोई सीमा नहीं होती. To be Hinduism means inclusivity and there is no limit to inclusivity. Then he said, Hindu यानी क्या? जो इसमें विश्वास करता है कि अपने रास्ते पर चलो, that you follow your own path, your own religion, दूसरों को बदलो मत. Don't pull other people away from the path that they have chosen. दूसरे की श्रद्धा का भी सम्मान करो. Respect the other person's faith. अपमान मत करो. Never insult it. ये परंपरा जिनकी है, संस्कृति जिनकी है, वो हिंदू है. Whoever follows this culture, whoever follows this tradition and heritage, they are Hindus. Am I correct with the translation?
Yeah.
Then he says, Hindu कहने का अर्थ ये नहीं है कि Hindu versus all. That to say Hindu doesn't mean that this is Hindus against all the rest. ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. Not at all. Hindu का अर्थ है समावेशी. So he repeats, to be Hindu means to be inclusive, right?
In fact,
and then he goes on to say विविधता में एकता ही भारत की पहचान है. That the identity of India is unity in diversity. उन्होंने कहा कि हम लोग ऐसा नहीं कहते कि आप हिंदू ही कहो. We are not saying that you call yourselves Hindus. आप हिंदू हो ये हम बताते हैं. इन शब्दों के पीछे शब्दार्थ नहीं है. That this is not a literal meaning. शब्दार्थ is literal meaning. Content है. हिंदी में लिखा है कंटेंट है. सो अंडरस्टैंड द कंटेंट बिहाइंड इट. उस कंटेंट में भारत माता की भक्ति है, पूर्वजों की परंपरा है. दैट इज डिवोशन टू द मदरलैंड, आल्सो द ट्रेडिशन एंड हेरिटेज फ्रॉम विच वी हैव ग्रोन. 40,000 वर्ष पूर्व से भारत के लोगों का डीएनए एक है. फॉर 40,000 years the DNA of all the people of India is the same. Doesn't matter what their faith is. And then he says, Hindu राष्ट्र का सत्ता से लेना देना कुछ नहीं है. That means the concept of Hindu Rashtra has nothing to do with power. And at one point he said, DK, just elaborate on that. He said, when somebody asked, आप हिंदू राष्ट्र कब डिक्लेयर करेंगे? So he said, हिंदू राष्ट्र तो है ही. इसको डिक्लेयर करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है.
So RSS, their definition of Hindu and Hinduism has always been very clear. What they have been saying, like when they talk about Hinduism, like Hindu is a way of life, it's not a religion. That they have been maintaining. Just that now Dr. Mohan Bhagwat feels this need to elaborate and explain things to the world outside. We saw him speaking so often in English today. He would switch into English very, very often.
Very often, yes.
So he was looking at the world outside. They have to understand him. And in fact, this swing, he is the 6th Satsang Chalak, and he has been very actively trying to communicate with the people. Earlier, as I said, they used to be very inward. Now he's trying to be communicative. So every single concept he tries to explain. So earlier they were talking about Hindu, but you would also hear talks about, Punya Bhumi, Pitra Bhumi, like, Punya Bhumi should also be in India, and what they were quoting Savarkar, and then, like they were talking about Muslims and Christians.
Savarkar had suspicions about the loyalty of those communities whose holy places were not in India.
Yeah. He did not get into that at all.
Right.
Today he is saying that, yesterday also he had said in Akhand Bharat, DNA of everybody, DNA of all the people in Akhand Bharat has been the same for the last 40,000 years. So I don't know, 40,000 years you can argue, but
I know.
Yeah, but earlier also
we leave that to archaeologists.
He had said that earlier also the DNA of the Hindus and the Muslims is the same. And then there was some kind of disquiet, unease within the Sangh, because that was something he had just come out with and saying it very vocally and clearly. He has doubled down on that
Right.
and elaborated, and basically saying today that, Muslims and Christians, I mean, they are not Europeans or Arabs or Turks.
Huh.
They are Bharatiya.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said Christians don't believe that they are Europeans,
Yeah.
and Muslims don't believe that they are Arabs.
And then that,
They are all Indian.
Islam came here, Islam is here, and Islam will be here, will remain
Will
here.
always be here.
Always
Will
be here.
be here.
And if anybody thinks it's going to go away, Hindus don't think. I mean, whoever is a Hindu does not think that Islam will go away.
Yeah.
So this broad definition of Hindu, so that is something. The elaboration part is quite interesting.
How will the RSS take it?
I think I was looking at the reaction of all there were swayamsevaks also in the hall, many, and they were very enthusiastically clapping.
Hmm.
So they see the RSS expanding now. It's
They've
not
also got the power now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they started with one shakha, and now there's more than
no,
now there's more than 83,000 shakhas in the country.
in fact, yesterday Mohan Bhagwat revealed the Sangh's plan to have RSS-like organization in every country. So you have your own RSS.
Although that's called Hindu Swayamsevaks,
But
because
he's
you
not.
can't call it Rashtriya.
And so
there.
he's not talking about Hindu swayamsevaks.
Right.
So, and later on, I learned about this concept. Some Japanese delegation had come to meet Sangh office bearers, and they had shown a lot of interest in having an organization like that. But RSS, you have RSS here, Japanese wanted something like that there. And I think from there on, they have started working on this idea that in every country, you make their citizens have an RSS-like organization, which will work for their reconstruction of their nations. So that's what an interesting thing he's talking about.
DK, 3 more boxes that he checked. And all these are political triggers these days. 1, language. What's a national language? Right? Hindi or not, but what's a national language? 2, reservations. And 3rd, caste. Caste and specifically Manusmriti. Wisdom.
Manu Smriti, because all the ideological adversaries of the RSS have been targeting the Sangh all these decades. That these are the people who are propagating and who actually believe in Manu Smriti. And he was very, very categorical today. That, when he said all this granth and everything, there were granths in the past, but it didn't mean that people followed it in the true spirit. So basically saying that people never really follow it, was just one document. And then he talked about how there is a need to, this varnas and jatis, he says this is not part of, there used to be what he called vyavastha. Like,
वर्ण व्यवस्था. In fact, he said पहले वर्ण व्यवस्था थी, अब ऐसा नहीं है. और हमारी कोई एक स्मृति नहीं है और एक ग्रंथ नहीं है. बहुत ग्रंथ हैं. और मनुस्मृति कोई, I think basically what he meant was that this is not binding. And there are many interpretations and many scriptures that you can draw from. And in different eras, different smritis can be written. So in fact, he said in this era, maybe a new smriti can be written.
And they have been having this internal debate. So one of the pracharaks was telling me while he was leaving, he was given examples. So just a few months back, as one pracharak was telling me, he was interacting with swayamsevaks, and he asked them that whenever there is they try to have at least one members of their family marrying into a Dalit family. And sometime back, when the person was telling me, he was giving some example, somebody's son had got married, and he inquired, Dalit se kiya ki nahi? So that kind of consciousness. So it's not just about selling things to people, that we don't believe in it. Because these are internal things, they're not even trying to advertise it. But internally sending out this kind of message, that try to have at least one member of a family.
Because there's a concern that even the opposition to the BJP comes from those who can use caste. So basically, can you use faith to reunite what caste divided? And can you use caste to divide what faith united? Right? That's a tussle in Indian politics since 1989.
And they've always had this, that caste is a big roadblock for them in achieving their objective.
Which is uniting
the entire society. So that has been there, but at the same time, they have always been facing that allegation that, they are more like upper caste driven organization.
Right.
This has been an allegation from their ideological adversaries. And they have been trying to address this issue not vocally, publicly, but they have been internally also, they have been trying to make the change.
And to this, he linked his answer on reservation as well.
Yes, because you remember before 2015 Bihar election, Mohan Bhagwat had said something to the effect that, as they told us that it was misinterpreted, his speech was misinterpreted, that, time has come to review the reservation system. So misinterpretation of whatever, but after that, whenever somebody asked him about reservation, he would say, no, I'm not going to talk about it. They, of course, they had clarified in a statement later that they support reservation and all. Today, he was much more emphatic that we have always believed that, people should have a reservation. If people have suffered atrocities for 1,000 years,
Yes.
at least for the next 200 years, you give them whatever support they need. And whenever they feel, the beneficiaries of the reservation system, whenever they feel that they do not need it anymore, then you can debate.
Right.
Otherwise,
that was quite emphatic.
Yeah.
And third was on national language.
Yeah, where he said that, every language is a national language.
Every Indian language
Every
is a
Indian
national
language,
language.
yeah. So
There should be one language, but one language in which everybody
can
converses
communicate
with
what
the
he called Vyavharik language.
Vyavharik
so-
language,
which should not be foreign.
should not be foreign,
No.
right? So he left it there. But at the same time, the question on whether you should teach all 64 Vedic kalas in school curriculum, that he answered differently, because there is a lot of pressure that school curriculum should draw from the Vedic education systems, etc. That he answered quite nuancely.
In fact, on every issue, if you look at it in the larger thing, he is very accommodative. Be it about having this ban on
Sanskrit,
food,
for example.
Sanskrit, like you don't make any language compulsory. So from religion to your food habits to what you read, what language you speak, he was very accommodative and trying to address all sections, basically, this side, that side, both sides, in fact.
Well, he also comes across as quite confident and willing to talk in detail, and also shows a little sense of humor. When he was asked about children, he said, Pracharak is the wrong person to ask this. But then he also mentions that in the RSS, there are only 3,500 Pracharaks. And there are about 5 to 7 lakh Karyakartas who can have families, right? And then he mentions more than once that he's a vet. He's a doctor for animals. In fact, when he tweeted what all dog lovers saw as the logical line on stray dogs, when he said, don't take them away, don't quarantine them, don't lock them up, just sterilize them and vaccinate them, right? He was also speaking as a vet. So in fact, even on the question of this forced teaching of Sanskrit, compulsory Sanskrit and compulsory teaching of 64 64 kalaएं वेदों की 64 Vedic kalas, he said, don't force anybody. And he used the example of a man and a dog. And he said, there was this man who had to feed some medicine to his dog. And the vet told him, grab the dog between your knees, hold him tight, open his mouth, and give him the medicine. So one day he succeeded. Next day, dog made him fight a little bit. Third day, the dog hid. He didn't know what to do with the dog. Finally, he caught hold of the dog. And as he was trying to force feed the dog, the bowl fell and broke, right?
Yeah.
And
the
the dog
liquid is spilled.
and the dog escaped. The dog went straight to the bowl and ate the
Started licking
medicine. And licked the medicine. So he used that elaborate example to say that you don't have to force feed people any of this.
For me, in a nutshell, the way I would look at it is RSS trying to dispel all misgivings about its own functioning, about its ideology, going beyond the RSS's ideological base. That will be one. The second thing is, if RSS people are very happy to hear Narendra Modi talking about the sun from the ramparts of the Red Fort, the Prime Minister will be very happy listening to what Mohan Bhagwat had to say today.
Yeah, and not talking about his government.
Not talking about his government.
So, DK, for me, the biggest thing in this episode or in this iteration is his big outreach to the minorities, saying if you are Indian, you are Indian. And for me, anybody who's part of this DNA is Hindu, and Hindu is not a definition by faith, right? How do you see the minorities seeing this? Will they see this as change, or will they say, it's the same thing, he's just packaging it differently?
Immediately, it's very difficult to say how they will react. But yes, I did hear one diplomat telling somebody that if we did not read about the Sangh earlier, I would find this organization the greatest. Just that we have read about the organization, that kind of skepticism that people have. But his messaging has been very good, and generally you have seen reception has been very, very good. But the way we see, he himself said that the leaders of those communities, like Muslims, for instance, they have to tell them they have to have confidence.
So I think what we can go with right now is what Mohan Bhagwat said. He said in Hindi, so I will do my best translation. He said, हिंदुओं को लगता था उनमें दुर्बलता है, and that's why the Hindus had their awakening. So Hindus are having that awakening, strengthen themselves, they feel stronger. At the same time, the Muslims think, they worry that they will be overwhelmed or they will be overpowered, and that's a misunderstanding. So एक तरफ awakening है, एक तरफ misunderstanding है, and this leads to a lack of confidence between the communities.
Yeah.
Where do you see then the RSS going from here? Minorities responding, and I'm sure by the morning the opposition parties would have come out all guns blazing.
Yeah, but opposition will. I can tell you, opposition will say they say something and do something else on the ground. The opposition has been saying it. So he has basically tried to address their concerns and apprehensions about where the RSS stands. How they will react, we'll see. So what I am looking forward to is how soon the next BJP president is going to be announced after what Mohan Bhagwat has said today.
Yeah, so that's the story you want to take forward, the quintessential political editor. DK, thank you very much for making sense of this.